Millions of Indians fought for the British and our allies during both world wars, including 2 Sikh New Zealanders who snuck their way into service in World War I. But why has it taken over a century to bring this history to light? Ko Linda Chanwai Earl aho in Wellington to bring you this week's Voices programme.
Dr. Bedi, High Commissioner Coyley, distinguished people who are here, ladies and gentlemen. The idea that in Australia and New Zealand that there should be proper recognition of people of Indian origin, and in particular people of Sikh origin who fought so bravely and so well and so often with loss of life.
Former Governor-General Sir Anand Satyanand is speaking at Honour and Duty, a tribute to Sikh valour, an exhibition at the Wellington City Library, recognising for the first time our New Zealand Indian Anzacs, in particular the contribution of Sikh soldiers to both world wars. Here in New Zealand, despite prejudice against non-Europeans who wanted to fight, 2 Sikh soldiers made it to the front lines, one in Gallipoli, earning medals for bravery, and one in France and Belgium, who lost his life. A buried history for over a century, historian and curator Mr. Harchand Singh Bedi travelled from Malaysia to bring these stories to light.
This exhibition is registered as Frames of Bravery, and it is with the Centenary Partnership here, led by Imperial War Museum London. Well, the contributions made by the British and also the Australian and the New Zealanders. Well, our Sikh soldiers or the from the Indian Army, British Indian Army, we volunteered to fight for the freedom of others in the both world wars. There were more than 160,000 Indian soldiers laid their lives, and today they are commemorated in over 60 countries around the world. And they have won 40 Victoria Crosses and more than 1,200 military crosses.
Yes, so incredible valour, incredible bravery and courage.
That is right. And
sacrifice.
Yeah, and the sacrifice made for the freedom of others. And we volunteered. We volunteered to fight for the freedom of others. Now, they were approximately about 6,000 over Indian soldiers served in the Gallipoli campaign, and from there we have got 1,600 over casualties in that particular campaign. Well, one of a very important division which was sent in Gallipoli were the Indian Mule Corps. Well,
the Indian Mule Corps in Gallipoli.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. 2 Sikh New Zealanders, Anzacs, served, 2 soldiers. Harchand Singh, he was a bachelor. He joined the expeditionary forces and went to war and was injured in Gallipoli. He was the first one.
He was the one who was injured in the Battle of Gallipoli.
Yes, and then there's Harchand.
Yeah, that's right. R.C. Mehra, yeah.
That's right.
Well, Harchand Singh was with from the Wellington mounted rifles, and he was injured in Gallipoli, where R.C. Mehra, he was with the 3rd Battalion New Zealand Rifles.
At the moment, there are approximately 40,000 Sikhs in New Zealand, and the numbers is growing.
Sikh New Zealander and community leader Mr. Anup Singh Bedi is holding the medals for bravery awarded to Indian New Zealander Harchand Singh, who served as an Anzac in Gallipoli. Harchand Singh joined the expeditionary forces in 1914 and was wounded there. The other Sikh New Zealander was Harchand Singh Mehra, who fought and lost his life in Belgium.
I'm holding the medals of Harchand Singh. He took part in the First World War. He went to Gallipoli with the Anzacs, was wounded over there and sent back, I think, to New Zealand. His great-grandchildren live in Auckland, and they were very kind to lend us these medals for the show. It is very exciting for us to know that there were Sikhs in New Zealand at the turn of the century who had got here, I don't know how and by what means, and they had all volunteered. There were a total of about 116 Sikhs in New Zealand at the start of the war, and I believe 62 volunteered to fight for the British, for New Zealand. And obviously for medical reasons or other reasons, most of them were rejected, except a few handful were selected to do service, out of which Jagat Singh and Mehra went to the front. I think given the opportunity, Sikhs will rise to the occasion. I'm quite confident they got the ability and the skills, but given the opportunity, very often, because of their linguistic skills, they are overshadowed.
But why has it taken so long for New Zealand and Australia to recognise our Indian Anzacs? Professor Peter Stanley from the University of New South Wales, Canberra, and the author of Die in Battle, says it takes time to mature as societies.
In 2015, I published a book called Die in Battle, which is the first book about Indians who served in the Gallipoli campaign. But it struck me as bizarre and very sad that it would take a century before anyone would publish a book about the Indian experience of Gallipoli.
But of course, this has been a buried history, hasn't it?
It has, although there are families in the Punjab where Sikhs come from who know a lot about this, but almost nobody else does.
And it says 1 in every 7 Sikh men in the Punjab went to war. This is the First World War. So essentially, it's about lack of recognition, lack of acknowledgement, isn't it? These men actually had to fight really hard to actually even be enlisted.
The migration of Indians to New Zealand and Australia was mostly young men. So that here we have the combination of young men from martial groups who were turning up, actually wanting to be enrolled. The irony was, of course, or the sadness was that in Australia and also in New Zealand, those not substantially of European race were not supposed to be enlisted at all. So in Australia, there were 19 Sikh men who managed to be enlisted. And the Defence Act said that they shouldn't have been enlisted at all. But of course, the need for recruits, for reinforcements, was
because
so great
of the high
because of the casualties, yes.
Quietly uncovering the history of our New Zealand Indian Anzacs, Professor Michael Roche from Massey University.
After 1916, with the way in which the army was operating, they didn't take on any other Indians after 1916. So we've really just got the couple of early ones who go overseas. Jagat Singh is amongst the New Zealand ones, and is wounded at Changapir, and December 1914 that's signed. So the war breaks out in August, and he initially joins up with the Wellington mounted rifles, and given that he was a cavalryman beforehand, he can ride. In terms of where he's posted as a replacement, he ends up not with the Wellington mounted rifles, but with another unit, and he serves the war out with them. That involves him going initially to Egypt, and then from there to what on the form is referred to, it's written as the Dardanelles, but it's the Gallipoli campaign. And looking at his casualty form, it just says reported wounded, and this is the point at which the ill-fated Changapir attack is on. So he's wounded, gunshot wound in the leg. He's hospitalised.
What can you tell me about Harchand Singh Mehra? He was killed in action.
Gallipoli happens before he gets there. So he volunteers in October of 1915, and he's in the 4th reinforcements to the New Zealand Rifle Brigade. He sails with reinforcements that go to Egypt. They arrive not long before, in the aftermath of Gallipoli, the New Zealand forces are decamping to France. So, he's not involved in Passchendaele, but he is part of the New Zealand forces that are in the Ypres salient. And there's a bulge in the line, so the New Zealand forces are in that and they're occupied with others. They're surrounded on 3 sides by the Germans, and it's very cold and very wintry at this point. On one particularly wintry day, it just says there were 3 casualties that day. He's one of the 3 that's killed on the 3rd of December, and there's no body ever recovered from that.
So Mehra was killed 3rd December 1917
in the Ypres salient.
And it's an emotional closing ceremony for His Excellency, Mr. Sanjeev Kohli, the High Commissioner to India.
I think, when I've been looking at the exhibition, one gets overwhelmed with a whole range of emotions. This is a story of utmost bravery, supreme sacrifice, and something, which really hasn't received the kind of appreciation or recognition which, those brave people deserved. These are largely unsung heroes, and but I think if you look at, what people have said about them, some of the world leaders, I always feel that but for their bravery, probably the outcome of the war would have been different. They were not only, fighting for their own freedom, but they were fighting for a better world.
If you'd like to learn more about this exhibition, go to sikhfoundation@outlook.com, or you can visit series and podcasts on RNZ's website and search for Voices. Ko Linda Chanwai Earl aho with today's Voices story. Ka kite anō.